welcome to tonight's episode of Crypto City. Just one more week before the season finale. Season 6 has just completely flown by. As many of you know, Blue has been on vacation for the last few weeks out of the country, and as such, I want to give huge shout out to Fuchsia for jumping in and taking the pitches for us each week. Also want to shout out DJ Marcus J, who's always working hard behind the scenes during the filming for YouTube and Spotify, and to Loudfire, who for always keeping public engagement under control. Quick mention that season 7 will be starting in August, and we are already booking our lineup. So if you know anyone who would be a good fit to come on here and either teach an episode or something to do with Web3, VR content creation, crypto, anything related to that, please hit me up. You can, reach out to me after the show. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm always around. We'd love to bring in some new blood too. If you know anybody who's newer to the metaverse and really, starting to take off, please introduce me. Love to get them on the show. Also, big shout out to our sponsors who have helped us keep the show going and bring you trainers each month. We got DJ Marcus J, Kip VR, Fuchsia with the Virtual Fitness Group, Boss Leo from the Diamond Resilience, Sato Mora doing his graphic novels from here within VR, Second Life Rich from Hume AI and Lux VR, Cybershay, Venue GPS, G Deuce from Barra Financial, and Tinker Love 1980 from Zen Royals, Beauty of Tink, and Sisters for Sisters. A lot of gratitude to all of you for helping us, supporting our efforts, helping us do updates, and bringing on the trainers each month. It's been a great addition to our lineup, and we're appreciative of all your support. Just a couple quick notable things before we bring out tonight's guest. Bitcoin, although it slid back a little bit, it's still over 100,000 right now and it's going strong. There's been a few things happening in the news this week that have been a little disturbing. There were a lot of hackers. There's some Florida teens that have that are getting charges pressed against them for, hacking in, stealing some Bitcoin. And I shouldn't say some, a lot of Bitcoin. And, Bitcoin's up and down, all crypto's up and down right now a little bit because of the economic uncertainty. But that is always something that goes on with the stock market too. So, this is just ride out and hold tight and, just pay attention to what's going on. I do want to point out that Missouri is in the process of working on eliminating the capital gains tax, which is actually big news for crypto and pretty much all investments. So pay attention to that because, as you know, if you make money on cryptocurrency, you are having to pay taxes if you pull out. So just keep that in mind. Google Chrome also announced that they're using Gemini Nano to help protect from online scams when you're browsing. It's interesting to me that, they're using AI-based program to help protect you against scammers who are most likely using AI to scam you. So it is a vicious cycle. And, as always, we just want to reiterate, as we talked about when Cybershay was on a couple of weeks ago, that, always just be vigilant and be smart. And everything you do when you're in a digital world, you should be aware and try to protect yourself. If you're using devices, use multi-factor authentication. Stay away from sites that seem questionable. And don't ever give your personal information out to people in texting and chatting and emails. Never send credit cards via email. And exercise good judgment in general. It seems so straightforward, but people forget when you get wrapped up in these things and you're excited about something you're getting involved in, you still need to be safe and careful. At the end of the day, you could be surrounded by a bunch of people who feel really badly for you because you got scammed out of your money, but they can't do anything. You are by yourself at the end, so look out for yourself. And if you're dealing in crypto, never give out your seed phrase to anyone. This is for you to access your wallet, never to be shared, and keep a copy in a safe place. Lastly, we're about to go into the summer months here in the U.S., and that means that a lot of us are not going to be online as much as we usually are because the weather's shifting and people will be doing a lot of outdoor activities. If you want to stay in touch with what's going on, there are a lot of new calendar programs going on right now. Ice Cold Stacks is running Luma. And if you need to be connected, let me know. Hit me up after the show or send me a message and I will get you connected. If you are doing events or you want to follow events, you want to get on this calendar. It's really cool. Boss Leo videos involved with it too, and it's amazing. So I've got everything in there for all the events that I'm doing. You want to make sure that you stay connected. Also, I'm pretty sure most of the people here are on social media, at least on Instagram, because that's the way that most people in VR are communicating. If you're not a big social media person, I know there's some of you out there and you're like, oh, I don't do social media, but get an Instagram account and just make it for VR. You don't even have to put a lot of content out there, but use it so you can follow the people in here that you're friends with, the people that you're attending events for, so that you can make sure that you're not missing out on things. That until the virtual world comes out with a better calendar system built into the programs like we used to have, you need this to stay in touch. You don't want to fall that far out, even if you are just enjoying yourself, and living life. And I will never tell you not to take a break from VR to go live life, because it's over quick. Make sure you pay attention and enjoy yourself. Spend time with your family and friends as much as you spend time in here. So with that said, tonight's guest has been a part of the VR community for many years and was a big contributor to the community over in AltSpace. He's a radio personality, an event host, a community builder, and a content creator. And after a short hiatus, he came back and he's starting to do things over here in VR chat as well. So please help me welcome to the stage Major. Major, please join us.
Yo, what's up?
Welcome. Please grab a seat.
All right. Let's see if I get this right. Yeah. First try.
Good job. First try. How you doing? Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So we've known each other for quite a long time from, back in the AltSpace days. But, give us a little bit of a history of who you are in the real world and what brought you into here.
Okay, so this is the weird part when I start talking about the history of it, but I'll kind of tell you the origin of so that headset was introduced to me by a family relative, and they were saying, hey, you can go in here and play these really cool games. And it was like the original Oculus that I got on. And I went in there, and the first social space that I discovered, I played a bunch of games, and then the first social space I discovered was actually VR chat. So I came over to VR chat, and it was weird. It was people running around just like giant bananas, and I was confused. I had no idea what was going on. It was like the Wild West. So I left that alone, and then I discovered AltSpace. And I went there, and I didn't like it too much at first because the avatars were kind of weird. They were like hot dog people or something. So I left, hopped out of the headset for a while, came back a few months later, and they had updated the avatars. And I remember just hanging out in this space, and I was blown away because here were these people in this virtual space. And I think the first place I went to was like a comedy club, and there were comedians on stage doing comedy in the metaverse. And my mind just exploded with all of the possibilities and everything. So that's how I first got into it, and have been connected to it in some capacity ever since.
Okay. So, when we were in AltSpace, there was a lot of community events and a lot of people forming groups to try and do bigger and better things. And you actually founded a group called Metaculture. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the creation of Metaculture was kind of interesting because I had this it was created out of a negative experience and turned into something really positive. I went and I met, and I'll give the short version of it. I met a guy who I'm always full of ideas, right? And so I met this guy. I won't say his name, but he seemed like a pretty cool dude, and we were just hanging out. I remember I met him, and then he introduced me to somebody named Artsy, and then me and her got cool, right? And so we're all hanging out one day, and we're hanging out. Artsy had built a airplane hangar, and she had a plane.
Yes,
so we're chilling. That. You remember that? Yeah. So we were chilling by the plane, and we're talking about all this crazy stuff. And I start telling this crazy story. I was like, I know what you guys are doing. You're moving drugs through, metaverse. And, we're laughing and joking and being silly. And I start coming up with this whole scenario, right? I didn't think anything about it. I was just throwing the idea out there. I left I was off the headset for a week, and I came back, and they were like, hey, did you see so-and-so's movie? And I was like, no, what movie? And they was like, oh my gosh, man, he did a movie. It's so dope. So I went and found him, and he pulled it up on the little, if you remember the alt space player they used to have.
Yes.
And he had it through YouTube. And so I watched this movie of pretty much the idea that I had laid out. And I didn't get mad. I thought it was incredible. I was like, oh, this is so dope. And we can do this and that. And, I'm throwing these ideas because it seems like it can be real. And dude hit me with something that just blew me away. He said, yeah, I really I have the script together already. And I was like, oh, okay, well, dude, we can, I can, because I talked about playing this role of a lawyer in there. And I'm like, okay, well, I can be the lawyer and whatnot. And he goes, yeah, I mean, I've got my people cast already, but you can have a bit part. And when he said that to me, I kind of looked and I was like, yo, this dude literally just took the idea right out of my mind. And there's nothing I can do about it because, I fall into something called that technology gap. And that's something that's always been notorious that's affected the African-American community. This gap of when we can go and be consumers of spaces, but we had no ownership. And I never felt weaker or less empowered than I did right then. And it was something that just moved in me. And I was like, never again are we going to be left out of something. So I went and got, which was just a bunch of friends together. And that was the precursor to what wound up becoming Metaculture. And we designed it, and we wound up being 10 partners in it. And we designed it on the principles of closing that gap and creating safe spaces, because there was also not many places that people of color could go to and be safe. Like, as soon as you would pop in some of those spaces, you were immediately called the N-word, or you were harassed and all these things. And so we said, listen, if we can't find it, we're going to create it. And Metaculture set out in this mission to start creating experiences and start really building, for lack of a better term, this metaverse that was cool for us to be in. It started off about maybe like 30 people of color, period, that ran around together and stayed close knit. But every time somebody came into that space, popped in, the central place was called Campfire. Every time somebody popped in the Campfire, we immediately welcomed them. We made them feel welcome. It was almost like, all right, there's another one. Let's go catch them before they get discouraged. And out of that, we helped to grow that community from like 30 people to thousands. And so, yeah. And we had a lot of fun too. And it was us. And then it was you guys' organization, The Flock, which probably put on like, we were friendly rivals, we would compete to see who put on the best events. But yeah, that was some of the best times that we had, like, just putting stuff together, masterminding these ideas. And we took it seriously. We took it very serious. Yeah.
So it started something, you took something negative, turned it into something positive, but it started as a group and became actually a movement. I mean, for a long time, there was a lot of things that were, spawned from that one little idea.
It became a movement. It became a family. And we took a lot of slings and arrows for it. Like, a lot of people were not happy with this idea, what we're doing. They was calling us troublemakers, bullies. There were a lot of people that were trying to attack Artsy as she was creating, because a lot of people don't know she was the first to create like economic trade in a space. Like, back then, people attacked her for selling, building something and selling it. And so, yeah, so like they would do petty things. Like, she would get water from somewhere to put in people's pools. And the creator of the water was like, oh, no, you can't use my water, And so she felt discouraged for a while, but we really just as a family came around and was very protective and was like, no, you're going to do this. And so she would always find a way around. She went and had her own water created that was dope. And then they came back to her and was like, hey, can we borrow that? Nope. And so, yeah. And what was nice is that we all were developing our own thing, our own personalities in there. Like, I always liked to run my mouth, but I didn't know that would turn into something like hosting. So we all developed individual skills that I don't think we would have done unless we had that family unit around us.
Absolutely. And speaking of hosting, that kind of takes us into our next topic to discuss. So you actually created an online radio station, VR 105. So that was a new direction in general and something for entertainment for the masses. But, tell us a little bit about the founding of that.
Okay, so VR 105 was founded with my morning show co-host, Krim Baltimore, and unfortunately Krim passed. We lost him. Yeah. He rest in peace. But it was born out of an idea that wasn't just mine. It was me and Crimson. We talked about it all the time. We were like, just how dope would it be to have this radio station, that people could connect to in the metaverse? We had no idea what we were doing. And we talked about it, and finally we just said, dude, let's do it. And then I just went crazy with it. Like, it became this like very small thing, and it just grew and grew. And Artsy built our first radio station for us. And our first show was Major in the Morning, which was like a morning variety show that, just like any other morning drive show. We did skits. We were different characters on the show. We did over 100 episodes. The insane part about it is that we thought it was a good idea at the time to record this 5 days a week. And so faithfully, we were doing it. It was a lot of that was during the pandemic. So we had the time to do it. But there's times we would be recording and literally falling asleep because we'd just be exhausted trying to get this thing done. But but out of that, we had Blade Relic had a show on there, and his was like probably like when we followed I think Blades was the #1 show for a while. And then we started embracing Club King Freeman, and he did this like club radio show on there. And then, oh man, I know I'm forgetting some people in there are going to kill me. We started adding more folks. It'll come back to me because there's somebody I'm missing. But long story short, it ran for a while. It was going crazy. We had no direction. Like there was no blueprint. We were just flying by the seat of our pants and having fun doing it, right? And there was this like immense love that we had for it. And then unfortunately, like things slowed down for a little while, and lost Crim. And then I just, that was like losing my heart and soul. Like there was literally like I couldn't do the morning. I wasn't going to do the morning show with anybody else. People had approached and offered. It was absolutely not the same. And I felt like I was betraying them a little bit for a while. So that was the first, and I backed up off of that one. And then the rebirth of VR 105 came. And that was interesting because we were already moving into this space. And so that was the biggest endeavor. And I jumped out the window on that one. Like when I say like Kip was part of it. Kip was like our operations manager. To sound like he edited all of the show, like all of the shows. He would be cussing me out at night, just editing the stuff, sick of doing it. He's like, I got bills to do, man, but I got to do this too. And so he was doing everything. We had like a lineup of like 10 different people, all based in the metaverse. And some people didn't have the training. So we were spending time like training people, and it was this massive endeavor, and everything just went because I was trying to be the guy that was going to push everything through, and then real life happened. And when you lose a loved one, I lost my mom, just a whole bunch of real life crazy stuff started happening. Mentally, I just was crushed. And so I was doing that, and I was doing Almost Midnight, which is the show I do off of the headset, the late night Sunday show. That's the R&B joint. That was my passion project. I maintained that for a while, but it was just too much to do. And, it just kind of almost became like, all right, I need a mental health break. And so I stepped away from that and gradually, and then I think I just wound up stepping away from the metaverse as a whole, just to do real life for a while and reset that.
And that's important. Yeah. It's definitely important. And I want to talk about that a little bit in depth. But I do want to take a moment though. You mentioned Artsy a couple of times and everything. And, for her to experience what she did when she first came on and have people chastising her for what she did. For those of you who know Artsy, you know that the work that she produces is superior world building. It's absolutely gorgeous. And kudos to her for rising above the challenges to say, you know what, go ahead, take my water away. I'm going to get better water and have people, come and want to use mine. And she built cross-platform. She was building an alt space, building a VR chat. I mean, and it's funny because she was one of the first interviews I did when I was over at Yummy NFTs, and she came in to talk about the work she was doing, and she explained that her love for building came from building doll houses. And that was like how she kind of started doing what she did, and she wanted to like make these replicas of living spaces that you would use with dolls, but for life size for us. So it's kind of cool to see the evolution, we'll call it, on that end.
Absolutely.
But so we'll talk about Almost tonight in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about, taking your mental health break, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of people in here, content creators, world builders. Kip is a perfect example of people who work pretty much 24/7.
Hmm.
And it burns you out. And there are
Absolutely.
times where you really need to, self-care. You need to take a break. And it doesn't have to be 6 months. It could be a couple of days. It can be
Yeah,
your vacation. You can take a vacation. It's okay.
absolutely.
And I think the fear is, and maybe you'll agree with me on this, is things happen fast here in virtual reality.
Very
A
much so.
day
Yeah.
is like a week is a
Yeah.
month, and a month is a year. So if you miss things, you feel like, oh God, I stepped away, I lost everything. But your health and your mental well-being are far more important. So tell us a little bit about, how you dealt with taking the break itself and coming back and reclaiming your space.
Well, I didn't leave pretty. You know, I can't. I literally like. I went full blown Pisces. I just shut it all down and was like, and I feel bad because I left a lot of people hanging. Even though I thought I explained it well, looking back, I felt like I left a number of people hanging that was like helping to support my dream. You know, and therefore supporting their dream. And so I felt like stepping back. I kept putting this weight on my shoulders. So the first thing I did when I left, I felt incredibly guilty. Even though like life is crashing down around me, I'm still feeling
Mm.
guilty. I'm feeling bad. And I realized that the metaverse was following me everywhere in real life. I don't know if you all experience this. I'm sure you do, but somebody pisses you off in here. And then you might be at work in real life or something. And you realize you're thinking about this while you're
Mhm.
interacting with your family members or something like that. That was me constantly because I was always trying to put so many things on my shoulder. I wanted to just see, I had this passion, and we'll get into that, about just seeing things evolve. And I have this like crazy dream for what the metaverse could be, that I carried that with me 24/7. And like you said, it can be crushing. And so
Mhm.
I left bitter, right? I left bitter. I left angry. I left like petty stuff and small things carry over with me. And when I took that break, I started gaining perspective, from very simple things. Like I was reminded, just even something as simple as sitting out in nature, right? That
Mhm.
there's a speed, I'm a man of faith. There's a speed that like the Most High moves at, right? And we try to outpace him. But if you have determination and you have this vision for whatever it is for your life, you're going to arrive there. You just have to stay consistent. And so I realized I'm trying to outrun all of these things and trying to do it all. And then I had this mindset that even though I got a team with me, I got to lead the charge all the time, you know? And so I just took time and gained perspective. I forgave the people that I had conflict with, and then I had to forgive myself. And I'm the hardest on myself. So
Mhm.
once I was able to do that, I slowly started working my way in. People would hit me up and say, "Hey, when you coming back?" And I'll be like, I always come up with an excuse. I went over to Second Life for a while, and that was a different experience. Learned a lot of things over there too. But I just realized that if I come back, and I made this promise to myself, I'm going to maintain balance. FOMO is very real in here. Like there's always something going on. There's always
Yep.
a dope experience or event. So you go like, oh, if I don't show up this weekend,
Yeah. I'm gonna
but
miss
you
it.
yeah, but you have to you got to create those boundaries. Like I recommend that every person in here take a hiatus, and you're going to realize that like you're going to go through this withdrawal thing, but like take a week off, and just
Mhm.
disconnect from it. Forget about what's going on in here, get back to IRL, and then find balance. Like every few weekends or whatnot, I'll tell everybody, hey, I'm not going to be around. I'm doing stuff in real life. And so I promised myself if I came back, I was going to chill out. I wasn't going to do anything. I actually told myself I'm coming back to just play games and not do anything and not get involved. And
Back
that
to
lasted about,
basics.
yeah, and that lasted 2 days. That
Of
literally
course it
lasted two
did.
days. Yeah.
There's so much to do in here. That's the thing.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm glad to see that you were able to, you know, literally take the break and get yourself back on track and reground yourself. Because
Right.
I mean, I am equally as guilty as everyone else that, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna back off a little bit, and then I fill my plate with like 12 more things. And it's because I thrive on the stuff that we're doing in here and I love it. But I think what happens is we lose the attachment to our family and friends in the real world or in the physical world, because we are so engulfed in coming in here. And it's easy to be in here. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
You're
Very much
sitting
so.
on your couch, you put the headset on, you're like, yep, I'm here. I'm with all my friends every day. This is so great. It's so easy. I don't even have to leave my house.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes what did you say? Sit in nature, like just get outside for a minute and remember that life is here, you know.
Here's a really good boundary to create in that a thing. Set something that's a non-negotiable, saying if I get hungry, I'm not gonna have it delivered. If I get hungry, I have to get up and go get it. If I got to get groceries, I'm gonna get up and go get it. People, and I know some people that are probably like, "No, you crazy? I'm not doing that." But just forcing yourself to have to get up to go do those things and then come back, that gives you that necessary break sometime. And if you're reluctant to do it, you gotta look in the mirror sometime and just go, "All right, am I addicted right now? Like, is this a thing that like I'm losing kind of touch with reality?" And that's not a put down. Like, it's a very real thing. We saw it happening in alt space. It happens here. It happens in most meta spaces. And because we're the pioneers of this, there's no studies. There's nothing there's no mental health ways to deal with it. And anybody writes those books, it's going to be the people in here now. Like, here's how you manage the metaverse. So, what's worked for me is, yeah, I'm always eating some. So I got to go get it, and sometimes it's quick.
I feel like
I'll be
that's
right back.
a big thing in here too. Everybody's always eating in here. It seems like.
Oh yeah, that's just
not
crazy,
pointing
man.
fingers on any of you out there, but
that's because I got a lot of big back friends and they always talking about food, and so
right.
Our kids always
That
chewing on
part.
something when I'm talking to him. Like, and he'd be like, "Hey man, I got this. Have you ever had honey glaze?" And then it's a wrap, So
definitely a thing in the metaverse. Eating is a thing in here.
Oh man.
But so let's get back a little bit to, the evolution in here of, coming in, seeing the space, realizing the potential, doing things within this space, and trying to keep it, here we are, we have, the little alt space nugget.
I was looking at that. That's crazy. The throwback. That boy was fresh back then too. Ooh.
And then we have, VR chat, and we have Horizon, and the going across different platforms. You learn different techniques, you learn different metaverse cultures as well, different ways things work, and learning to do events and learning to do different things in here from a technical aspect. Each one of them requires you to learn a little bit different platform. Like Altspace, we know we did amazing event things. That's what it thrived on. Horizon is coming around and they're doing bigger and better things all the time. They're slowly eking the information out. VR chat, you have a very similar event platform to what we had before. There's Cluster, there's plenty of other apps out there too. But you need to evolve as a content creator as well. Because what you're doing today, tomorrow they change the software. When we were in Altspace, remember, everything went pink when they did the URP update, and everybody lost everything and nobody knew what to do. So you had to scramble. So what is your take on staying ahead of the technology without being too immersed and too much of a servant to it?
I think one of the things that you have to do is you have to look at it from the standpoint of nothing's going to compare to nothing's going to outpace real life, right? So if you approach whatever you're doing seriously, then you'll stay ahead of the curve because you're going to find a way to match that experience. One of the things that the best thing that I learned from when we were putting together events for Metaculture, and it applies everywhere, is that understanding when you're doing an event, I'm a very event-centric, experience-centric. It's about the experience. You want to create an experience from top to bottom, and I'm very big. Anybody that's ever worked with me, they know I am like crazy as far as excellence go. I want everything executed perfectly, and I'm upset if it's not. But not because like I'm some perfectionist. It's that when somebody interacts with whatever I'm doing, I want to make sure they have the best experience possible. So I would say do the research on the latest tech that works. Don't just implement a bunch of new technology because it's out. Make sure that it's functional, make sure it works, make sure it serves your people. Test, and test again. If you are putting together, like I said, I'm gonna go back to an event and you have not done a run through, if you haven't tested all of your technology ahead of time, if you haven't done a dry run with your people in there, then you're doing that audience that's going to come experience that a disservice. So tech is cool, but that just supports the experience you want to build. You can have 5 people standing in a circle and create the most amazing experience if you consider, how do I want to present this? Sit down and really think about it and understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are. I met a millionaire and he told me one time, he said, hey, so the way to really be good at something and have a great business is that you learn an aspect of your business, right? And I'm just nodding like, yeah. And then he goes, and then you learn all of the aspects of the business and you do all of those components, right? Until you're a master of all of it. I was like, yeah. And he was like, you sound stupid.
No.
And I was like, dang. I'm agreeing because I'm thinking I'm about to get brownie points. He's like, you sound stupid. He said, that's a recipe for burning out. He says, outsource your weaknesses. And that's something that sticks with me. So if you know you're okay with something, there's somebody in the metaverse that is way better than you at that. In real life or in 100%. Here, go and connect with that person. But in order to do that, you're going to have to give up something. You might have to give up a little bit of control. You may have to give up a little bit. You might have to compromise the vision, not to the point where it's bad, but you might have to take that person's thoughts, ideas, and energy into it. But what you may have is a better thing collectively than you would have had by yourself. And so I empower people to work together. Gatekeeping in the metaverse is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Like, seriously, like if anybody's holding ideas to themselves and they don't want to share them, it's corny to me. I understand, like, if you want to present something and you want to present it at the right time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, if you can help somebody or show somebody how to do something, why wouldn't you? Like, it's not enough of us in this space. I think we get delusional sometimes, and it serves into, and forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, but I got to touch on metaverse ego sometimes. But I think people get delusional. I love sticking a pin in this. People get delusional, right? And so they start thinking that there's something beyond. Everybody in here is incredible. Everybody in here is special, but don't start thinking that you're beyond or above somebody else. Somebody told me one time in Allspace, they were like, Major, you're famous in here. And I was like, bro, our event only holds like 35 people, fam. There was more people in my family reunion. What are you talking about? Like, I'm not famous, goofy. Like, but it's that perspective that you start losing kind of touch. You're not famous. People might like what you're doing. Some people might just like you, but once you separate out your friends and family that are popping up for you, it shouldn't be about that, so understand that, like, collaborate with people, work together, work with people that you didn't traditionally work with. You might be building your business or your experience or whatever, and you're helping them build theirs. That's how you pull more people wanting to mess with you. Because when that new person or that new exec pops into a space or whatever, if they see you executing at an incredibly high level, then they start going, I might want to invest in this space. Because we've seen what happens when the alternate of that happens. We know what happens when you got a space and it's just ignorance and drama. The money people go, it fails. I mean, there's a lot of things in alt space that could take it off, but the personalities, would ruin it sometimes, would ruin the experiences. So I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent, but
it's very true though.
Yeah. Yeah, that ego thing. And what I love about this experience that I have been gone for 2 years is, like, I get to pull up and I don't have any, like, thing. Like, I'm not coming in this space like, oh, I'm Major Godfather of the metaverse. Like, it's like most people in here, like, when they interact with me, they have no idea who I am. And I actually love that. I love the fact that they don't know who I am. I love the fact that they just like, who is this goofy dude with this played out avatar? Like, I like that because it helps me prove to myself, all right, I did it once. Can I do it again?
You can be anything
and
you want. Yep.
yeah, and I caught myself giving the old head speech to somebody. I was like, man, you don't know who I am, son. Let me tell you, sit down. It was back in the day, and I was just like, man, stop that, bro. That is not what I should be doing. Like, I can't go off of past successes. I can only go off of what I'm doing right now. And if I'm not doing it for somebody else, if I'm not trying to lift the entire culture, then nothing I'm doing is worth anything anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny you mentioned, farming out the things that you're not as good at so that you can be better as a whole. And, having done a lot of events in here and hosted a bunch of different things and, even to the podcast that we're doing and everything, I know where my strengths are. I know where my weaknesses are. Right. And I am perfectly fine with saying to someone else, hey, do you want to do this part? Because this is not what I do. I mean, it's funny because you find the people that you work well with. I mean, Blue and I have worked together on multiple different projects. We were together in the flock. We've worked together on different events. We've hosted parties together, all different types of things. She really enjoys being more on the back end and the logistics. I prefer being more on the front end of the content creating and the hosting. So like that together, there's two different parts. You know what I mean? And I can do the logistical stuff, like you said, but it is not where I excel. I'm much better, of coming up with the ideas, the creativity flows. I'm like, oh, we could do this and this and this and this. And I put it all together and then I can put together, Kip will tell you that I'm an excellent person at putting together lists, punch lists, things that need to be completed. I'm very logistical that way. But then I don't want to sit there and have to be like, oh, this needs to be over 3 millimeters. Like that'll drive me insane. That's what she's good at. So together we can create a beautiful experience because we're each doing our part.
And you recognize your strength and you recognize your strength in one another. And don't be afraid to. And sometimes, and I know I annoy people with this, but I don't care. I love doing it. I'll see the potential in people. Like I always tell folks, like anytime I meet somebody, I always meet two people. I see who they are and then I see the potential. Right. And I always speak to the potential person. And, and I'm always trying to, hey, you can do something. I think I actually ran up on you and Blue a long time ago. I was like, listen, y'all, I'm telling you, y'all dope together. You can do these things. You should call yourselves Blue City. I thought I killed it with that name, too. Blue City. It'll be dope. And y'all were like, okay. You know what I mean? But I definitely saw even back then, like, your strengths and your balance with one another. So, but you're absolutely right. Find people that, might play to your strengths, even if it's balancing out your personality. It might be nothing but just balancing out your personality. You might be more chill. You might be able to go and sit down and talk to somebody and they might be on some like high energy thing. And just those balances of them, of those two things might be just enough you need to get to that next level,
Absolutely.
One more thing actually that I'll say about that too. Our ideas are very precious to us, but sometimes I would tell people, don't be afraid to give it away or to bring people in and put them in position. Like, I think there's one thing that's not happening often in here that I'd love to see more of. I'd love to see people be more producers. Like, hey, I have this idea and I stand behind the scenes. And if a lot of people don't know Rockadollar, he's going to be more active in here. But Rockadollar was literally a producer over in Altspace. So he would put the money behind it too, but he would get places built. He would see potential in people. And he says, I'm going to build you a studio. And he did one of the first talk shows, Man in the Middle, and it was ladies that ran it. And he just was off in the cut. And I think sometimes if that there's some people that you really believe in and you see the potential in them, don't be afraid to get behind them and say, look, I don't have to shine. You shine and I'm going to support you. Now, if we benefit together, but I see the potential in you. We don't have to hold everything to ourselves because, I'm not a singer. You don't want to hear me sing and you definitely don't want to see me build, but to keep it a buck, there's some people that I don't like seeing host, play to what works for you.
And I do love that you just said that because it's funny. We should want everyone to shine. That
Hmm.
we don't have to always be the star. We can have other people shine. And to that, what you're saying there, that's the other project that I'm involved with right now, that hip hop joint, similar thing.
Hmm.
Kawan Kimpachi is the star of the show. He's the hip hop artist. He's the one. I saw that he wanted to do something like that, and I said, if you want to do this, I'll get behind it and I'll put together the back end of it, and we'll run with it. And you can be up on the stage, do all of that. I'll put together the back end and produce it, like you said.
Right.
And that's that wasn't what I do, but I saw that he had the potential to make this thing shine, and so
Yeah.
I let him run with it. I think it's
And
good for people to do stuff like that.
I think it's really good. And look, and don't be afraid to being a you can be a boss and a soldier. You can be a soldier in somebody else's army and still be a general in your own. Like, don't be afraid to do something that helps push somebody else forward, and then maybe they can reach back and lift you up. I think one of the fears that people have is people suffer from something called scarcity mentality, and I think we all hit it sometime. And it's this idea that I'm afraid of doing something and including other people in it, because if I give it to them or I work with them on it, it's going to take it off my plate, which is insane. Because when you really look at it, I don't even know how many people are, in this room, or how many people are in VR chat at any one particular time. But the reality is that we could build something collectively, right? Like, just everybody in this room, we could build something collectively, and we could have one company. And I just need people to think about that. One company's half of their first quarter budget would probably pay everybody's bills in here. I think we don't have a perspective of what we could do when we think collectively. And because of that, we think, I need to get somebody in the door because I might get $5,000. Now, yeah, $5,000, that's nothing to like squint at. But if we could do things at a this much higher level, and bring in the big dollars, I don't think people realize how transformative that could be. Um, can I speak on space real quick?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, future plans, perfect. All right, well, I went over I had an opportunity to go over to Altspace, and Altspace, for people that don't know, it's a PC based 3D world where you go in there, you're not in the headset, you're doing everything on screen. It's a little bit different in its functionality because a lot of their preset scripts in order to do some of the function. Now, but the one thing
are you referring to Second Life, not Altspace, right?
I said Altspace. I'm tripping. Second Life.
You said Altspace. You mean Second Life.
My
okay.
bad.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do it interchangeable. My bad. Thanks for the credit. Second Life, not Altspace. All right. When we went to Second Life, right? I went over there, and actually Artsy and Rocket Dollar were the ones that brought me over there. And when I went in there, I saw people that were doing things at a high level. And I was super proud of like things that we did in Altspace, because I thought, I was the first to conceive a lot of the stuff. And I realized folks over there have been doing it for years, and they do it to a level that is beyond what the capacity that we have right now to do it over here with. But Artsy made a home over there because she's making, I'm not gonna count her dollars. She's making a decent living over there. And there's a number of people that are taking it to the next level. So one of the things I was able to do is spend time over there and see execution done at a high level, right? And so that takes me kind of into future plans. Look, I left for 2 years, right? I came back and I said I was going to sit down and chill, and I can't do that, So
wait, who the fuck are you?
If I had to summarize,
sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, you good. Yo, it wouldn't be VR if you had it. Look, if I had to summarize like what's next, I've sat back and I left for 2 years, and I see some beautiful evolution, and I'm seeing some new things happening, and I'm seeing quite a bit of the same thing, and I'm seeing some folks, I'm not saying everybody, folks that have gotten comfortable, right? Being in a space like Second Life, you see where, because people are pushing in at an excellent level, there's pressure to get better and get better. So I'm telling you, I'm putting my warning shot out here right now. I'm coming for the neck now. Like if I'm back, I can't sit still. So if I do my thing, like I'm doing it at a high level, and I'm not joking, I'm not doing it by myself. Some stuff is going to some things are going to be smaller and it's going to elevate. But right now I'm quietly gathering the troops and doing it. And I'm talking about partners that are going to be standing shoulder to shoulder with me on some of these things. Some things I can't talk about, but one thing I can say is that we are bringing back a club. So I'm jumping into the club game over here, and I'm actually partnering. Right. I'm partnering in a club that I used to work at. If you remember Club Premier, it's one of the longest running clubs. Of course. And in the Metaverse, we're bringing it over here. And It was built by Artsy, so people can get in there and see our work. It's absolutely gorgeous. Kip is working diligently to get it prepared to bring in here. And Amazing. That's coming very soon. Yeah, we're going to put promo and everything around it. But when I talk about experience, when you teleport into that space, you'll see exactly what I mean. I'm not treating this like something that's in the metaverse. I'm treating this like you're coming to a place to be able to go out and relax. I do have enough experience behind creating those experiences, and I'm determined to do that in here. It's going to be 25 and up. It's for the grown folks. It's going to be sexy. Like it's geared towards a place where you can go listen to good music, amazing DJs, good atmosphere, zero trolling. And we're going to, and we're absolutely going to have like just different experiences, like non-traditional things that are going to be going on in there. I wish I could say more. I'm super excited about it, but like it's like coming home posted. To me. Yeah, absolutely. And I want everybody to come. You shouldn't miss it on social media because we're going to go crazy when it comes to like promoting and putting it together. But it's what it was over there, but an elevated experience. Like, so we're doing it the way it should be done, and I'm super excited. Rock Dollar's coming back over to, be part of that. Beyond that, you head up there. I started doing Almost Midnight again. Again, for those of you all don't know, if you're grown, you like good music, you like R&B music. Man, that reminds me of All Space right there. That totally reminds me of All Space. If one of the things that I'm really excited about bringing back Almost Midnight is because it's an R&B show. I love music. It's a passion project, but it's turned into something very real. I broadcast it through an app called Station Head. The only thing that sucks about it is that you have to have either Spotify Premium or Apple Music to hear the show. But if you have it, I encourage you to come in, listen to it. It's 9:30 every Sunday night. We will be broadcasting it in the space as well. But It helps the numbers if you actually log in. So I'm gonna start pushing that out much heavier on social media as well. And it's a vibe. People come in. There's a live chat. We can talk about different subjects. We have contests. We're going to be having giveaways, giving away money and the whole nine. And this Sunday is going to be a really interesting show. So look, if you got a little boo in the space, if you got somebody you like, a crushing on, whatever, or if you're single and looking for somebody, we're actually going to have a live dating show on there. Nice. So come through, bring your friends. We're going to have a lot of fun. So that's honestly the tip of the iceberg.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm still hosting. As soon as I popped in here, Kip, Dub, Ferrari gave me a home over at Sky Song, so I still host over there. Nothing compared to like one of the dopest hosts in here is Loudfire. She owns that space, but I'm glad to be able to just come in, stand next to her, and do that thing. So that still goes down every Wednesday.
She is amazing.
Wednesday and Saturday, yeah. And if you haven't experienced it, make sure you get VIP, man. All you got to do is boost the Discord, and you get VIP for a week. I had to get that shameless plug in there as well.
Shameless plugs, love it.
Big time.
Okay, Kip's family, so it's Kip and Loudfire, both part of the family. So.
Yeah, but honestly, I mean, like I said, that's the tip of the iceberg. Those are the big things, but there's much more to come. There's people that I haven't approached yet. There's something that we're putting together, and I don't know if I have permission to mention it, but I'm just going to mention it anyway. There's a spoken word experience that's coming in here. that I'm partnering in with, with as well. So some announcements will be coming about that as well. So yeah, we got a lot of things in the works and so much more to come. But I'm here. I'm back for the foreseeable future. As long as it's the Lord's will, we're gonna get it done. But I'm telling you, look, we're not playing. We elevating. So get ready.
Good.
I'm bringing pressure.
Major 2.0. There we go.
2.0 all day. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in and talking about everything that you're doing now. And actually, for being so candid and open about your hiatus from here and how you view everything that's gone on, over the years, the way that we've moved forward in this metaverse space and how things have grown and evolved. For those of you who aren't following him yet, there's his IG to follow. The Almost Midnight, in some of the worlds like Sky Song, it's been broadcast up on the players so people can go in there and listen to it as well. So
check it out.
Anybody who wants to find out more about that, check in on his IG so that you can find out the details.
Reach out, hit me directly. I can give you more information than that. I'll post the link on my on my Instagram, especially, every Sunday. So yeah, click in. I'd love to have more people come in and, download the app, connect with us. That's the best way to experience it. So yeah. Nice. Big time. Yeah. Last thing I want to just say to everybody, I see everything that you're doing. I'm super proud from like this first vision of what we had or what the metaverse could be. You all have not only been helping to manifest that, but you all have stayed consistent with it. So kudos to every person, every world builder, every avatar creator and everything else. Don't be discouraged. Speaking of avatar creators, I do want to touch on this. A lot of people, especially people of color, had a big impact on their avatars. They had avatars that were created. There was some issue going on with the particular shader, and it impacted like these avatar creators' income, And so some of these people had gotten to the point where they're able to live off of the money, and then all of a sudden everything comes crashing down. You mentioned earlier, unfortunately, when you're dealing with technology, sometimes these catastrophic things happen. But I will say, shout out to these creators. These are like some very well-known ones. They are actively working on solutions and they're working collaboratively to make it happen. Nice. So you're going to see some answers starting to pop up with, some of y'all, especially ladies. I've heard y'all be like, I can't come out looking like this. It's crazy. So know that those creators are working diligently to make sure. But it speaks to something else. For some reason, it disproportionately affected avatars of color because, we have certain hair textures, certain eyebrows and stuff like that. And there's some universal things that could be used, universal shaders, but they just don't apply, and truly represent us. And so that is disturbing. And it does make you think like, we're still bumping up against some very similar things that we bumped up against in alt space. So years go by. And so, but don't be discouraged. Use that as a motivator. Maybe that's just that signal that's sent out into the universe that says, hey, maybe collectively we got to build something. Maybe collectively we've got to create something to where representation isn't even a question. It's a standard. So I'm all for supporting individuals. If you got any questions or anything, hit me up, and I will stand beside you any way that I can.
Well, you heard it here first. So thank you so much for coming on and imparting your knowledge and wisdom and experience with us. Next week will be our season finale. So we'll do a quick recap of all of the episodes that we've had this season. For me, it flew by. I know it started, at the beginning of the year, but I felt like it went by really quickly. And we did have our 100th episode within there. So for me, that was near and dear to my heart. And I'm grateful to all of you that have been following us for years now. And I can legit say that it's been, we've been doing this for over 2.5 years. So thank you so much for following us, and to our sponsors, our team. Thank you for all making this even a possibility. This was just a vision to be able to share information with the community and help everybody grow and give people resources that they could come and, meet people that might be able to help them elevate. So next week, we'll recap all of that. I know I mentioned this a couple weeks in a row now, we are doing a tech event in the end of June. So any of you who want to be part of that, please reach out to me. You do not need to do anything, special. All you need to do is come and talk and impart some wisdom to the people who are going to be here to visit the event. So with that, Fuchsia, thank you for stepping in as Blue. Kip, DJ Marcus, Loudfire, thank you for all that you do to help us. Major, thank you for being here, and we will see you all next week. And cut.